Right, so this is what I'm going to talk about. So I've got a website. Now what? So a lot of people get themselves a website created by a web agency like us, and then they think, that's it, I've got the site, set and forget, no more to do, got the site, job done, tick box. But it's not really the whole story. So the first thing you really should do when you've got your new site is really have a good think about the content you're going to put on it, and sort of continuously evolving that content and adding regular new content to your site and keeping it up to date. And depending on your sort of market sector or your niche, you want to make sure that you're updating it sort of regularly as your sort of competitor sites are doing. So if your competitor sites are sort of updating their sites once a month, then you're probably okay with once a month. If they're doing daily updates, then you probably need to be doing that as well. Really important that you do unique content and you're not copying content from other sites or going, oh, that was a really good piece of content I saw over there, so I'll just copy and paste that and stick it on my site because I think that will be useful to my users. You'd be surprised how many people actually do this. And it's a sort of golden rule number one is that you've got to have unique content. You've got to write it yourself or have someone write it for you, but it's got to be unique and it's got to be not copied from elsewhere. You really want to add high value content, so you don't want to be adding content for the sake of adding content. You want to be adding content that's useful to the sort of people that are going to be visiting your site. Obviously that is completely dependent on your site and your type of site and what sort of people you're expecting to get to it. But a good example might be doing sort of how-to guides. So if you were, say, a plumber, a good sort of how-to guide would be, how do you fix a leaky tap or something like that.
Call the plumber.
Well, you call the plumber. But what you do want to do is you want to make sure you keep it within your niche and within your sector and within your expertise. You don't want to just be writing in content for the sake of content and going completely off topic and outside your scope because of the way the sort of search engines see sites and stuff. They're looking for sort of consistency and things like that. So there's different types of content as well. Most important of which seems obvious, but text content. Search engines really only read text, so you need to have lots of good text content. And also nowadays video content is really quite important as well. If you do have video content and you can produce some videos, they don't have to be massively professional. If they get your content across and they get across that you're showing that you're an expert in a particular topic, that's really good. For sort of small to medium sized businesses or even bigger businesses, you probably want to be hosting those on a service like YouTube or Vimeo. I would personally recommend YouTube because it has a small sort of SEO advantage to using other hosting services. And also with YouTube, if you use YouTube, you can subscribe to channels and stuff like that, so you can get regular sort of people back from that. Better than that is to have both. So any content, if you do create video content, it's also really good to have that content as text content as well. So if you do create like a video where you're talking about it, you could have transcripts of that video, or you could create articles from that video content, and then vice versa. If you've got really good text content, why not create some videos of you talking about that content and sharing that information. Something else that's really important to have on your site is a contact form, and a lot of companies get this wrong in a big way. You want to have a really good contact form that's really simple and on every single page. So a lot of people will have a contact form and then ask 50 questions and make them all mandatory. It's like the worst possible thing you could do because no one is going to fill it in. Realistically, if someone wants to contact your business and wants to talk to you, what do you need from them? You need a name and an email address or a phone number, and you don't need both. If the person wants to give you their phone number because they want to talk to you, they'll give you their phone number. If they want you to email them, they'll give you their email address. That's all you need. You do not need anything more from them, so why ask more than that? And if you want to see a really good example of a contact form, have a look on the MSO site, because we've got a brilliant one. And it is on every single page. When you're adding content to your site, don't forget about the technical stuff. I've put technical in quotes marks, because for me this stuff isn't technical at all, but for a lot of you guys, you might think this is sort of a bit more technical. The hidden within the page under the hood, you'll have a tag that looks like this, which will be your title tag, and you have one on every single page. And you want to make sure that this tag is relevant to the page content. It's no more than 50 to 70 characters, including spaces, because if spaces count. And you want to make sure that it describes very succinctly what the page is about, probably in a way that you think people are going to search for it, but don't overthink it. Just try and be natural with it. And then the next one, again, that's hidden sort of under the hood of a page, is the description tag. So you'll have again, if you look at the source of the page, you'll have a tag that looks like this. And then in the content bit here, you want a description that's no more than 150 characters, but again is concise and descriptive and relevant to the page. And these are the two things that appear on the. So when you do a search on Google, and you get the sort of title, the link, and then the description underneath. These are the two things that generally control that content. They don't always. Sometimes Google decides that it knows better than you do and changes them for people and tries to be more helpful. But on the whole, these are the two tags that appear on the Google search results page. So when someone does a search and finds your site, if they're reading that, they're the things that are attracting them in to click through to your site. So you need to make sure that you've got that sort of right, and you need to make sure that you do them for every single page you add, and they're unique for each page, and they're relevant to the page.
And in terms of the way that's written, is that written as someone like I would understand it, or is there a specific way that you write it for Google to understand it?
Always write everything you write in terms of content, write naturally.
Right.
People try to overthink it, try to keyword stuff it and stuff like that, and they're all the tricks that Google's picked up on for years, yeah, and has long since dismissed. And if you write unnatural sounding content, you'll just be delisted quite quickly, or move down the list quite quickly. This one a lot of people miss. So every image you add to your page has, or should have, an alt tag, and this alt tag is a description of what the image is. And a lot of people tend to not actually put a description of the image in it. They just tend to put their company name or something, even if the image is completely irrelevant to that. But this is used again by search engines. It's part of what they can see, because obviously they can't see the image like we see it. So if you put text in the image, like say if you put a whole load of content and put it in an image and then upload that image, the search engine can't see any of that text because they're not looking for it. So you shouldn't put text in an image, but if you do, then you've got this alt tag to tell it what it is, but really you should never have that content in there. And when you are uploading images to your site, one thing that we see a lot is people upload huge images and then have them tiny on the page, but they don't actually resize the image and set it to the right size, so it's a huge image but being displayed small, which then makes the page load speed much slower, and again it's all the Google ranking factor and stuff. So you need to make sure you try and resize images and stuff like that to the right size before you upload them to your site. And one thing you really want to do is try and give people a reason to come back to your site, and this sort of all feeds into the unique content and having useful content and having stuff to make people want to come back again and again. Even if you're a business that you're primarily trying to sell them a product or a service, if you get them coming back to your site regularly, they know you as a business, and at some point they might use you as a business. They might think, oh, I do need a plumber now because I can't fix this leaky tap on my own, and I've looked that up on that site before, so I'm going to go back there and see who they were and see if they can help me out. So moving on to sort of promoting your site, this is where I think again a lot of people get a new website, set and forget, and they never really promote it, and they never push it to anybody, they never tell anyone it exists. It's like you were saying with the brochure there, it's like having a load of brochures, sticking them in the cupboard and never giving them to anybody. So you really want to promote your site in this place, which is everywhere. You want to do it online, offline, anywhere you can. So if you have, say, company vehicles, have the web address on them. And if everybody sends out emails these days, but the number of emails I receive from people who don't have an email footer with their company details in it, with their web address in it, with the web address linked, number of emails I see, but they do have the web address, but they haven't actually linked it, which means I can't click on it even if I do want to go to their site. And you can tell your existing customers. So every business has got existing customers, unless it's a brand new business. But even if you can do like a one-time email blast to all of your customers. If you don't have their email addresses, get a leaflet done, do a mail shot. There's plenty of ways to do it. You know something about your existing customers. There must be some way of contacting them. So let your existing customers know you've got a new site, you've got useful content, you've got something worth coming and looking at.
It's quite interesting actually how many people will market to new customers and leave their current database alone. They don't touch it at all.
Online adverts. So I don't know, a lot of, again, small to medium-sized businesses don't seem to realise that with online advertising you can now be very precise at targeting an audience. So you can, if you were just servicing, say, the Gravesend area, you can target that area for online adverts, for online Google pay-per-click and stuff. It's not necessarily global or nationwide anymore. You can target specific areas, so even small businesses can take advantage of it and advertise just in the areas they cover. It's relatively cheap, it's relatively quick to set up, and it's relatively easy now. Particularly with like Google AdWords, that's probably the easiest one. And it's worth just giving it a try and getting started and seeing what you can generate from it.
And you can be fast as well, can't you, Andrew? Now so for instance, if something happens, so if you're an accountant and actually there's a change in the tax law, you can that day put up a Google ad campaign that actually says help with the new tax regulation. You can be that quick.
Because people will be searching for that on those days, so you can target those keywords and stuff, and again you can target.
Whereas sometimes with a corporate, by the time they actually think about it, get it signed off, go through the right department, it's been and gone.
Offline advertising, so lots of people forget, it's not as bad as it used to be, but a lot of people forget about promoting their website in offline advertisements. Again, just make it prominent, whether it's a newspaper ad, a radio ad, a leaflet you've printed, a brochure you've printed. Make sure you get it across, make sure you get people to know that you've got a website, where it is, where they can find out more information about you. Go from there. Google My Business, they keep changing the name of this service, which is really annoying. It's had about 10 different names in its lifetime, but when you do a search for a particular business name on Google, you'll often notice that on the right-hand side of the search results page, there'll be a panel about the business you've searched for. So it will give you things like their logo, their name, a brief introduction to them, their opening times, their telephone numbers, things like that. That's what this service controls. And you don't have to register for it. It does pick up businesses through like directories, like Yellow Pages and things like that if you're listed in those. But if you want to control the information that's there, you need to register with it. Take control of that. It's relatively straightforward to do, and then you can edit those details. You can change what it says. You can edit the descriptions and things like that.
And you can change the photographs as well.
You can change the photographs and things and stuff as well. It's a bit weird. We were actually looking at it earlier today. Sometimes it picks up information from other sources which you can't edit. So it's hit and miss as to whether you can edit everything about it, but you can cover stuff. It's free. It doesn't take long to sign up for and take control of what Google's saying. Just search for Google My Business on Google, and it'll be the first search results. Click on it and follow the
So if they're already set up, you can claim that
it,
for yourself?
Yeah.
So if it's unclaimed, you can actually request to claim that?
Yes.
What if someone else has claimed it?
When you claim it, they send a postcard to you to the address that they've got with a number on it which you have to enter to verify that it was actually you. So you can't claim someone else's in theory unless you can get their post. And again, as I said,
it's become very powerful though, because it's so big on the right hand side now.
Yeah.
And if you get a big logo in there that actually dominates that whole right hand page side of the screen, and actually outweighs the results on the left hand side now so much. And the one we were looking at tonight, he said this business is now closed because it was 5 o'clock. So they're picking up times and.
And if your opening times are wrong,
you're right in terms of the power of it, because certainly now that you've said that, if I search for a business, if that panel comes up on the right, I never bother looking any further down the left. I just go straight to it. So the competition doesn't exist in my mind.
No, it only tends to happen if you search for a particular business name correctly.
I mean, I would never put a photograph of me as the logo because that would scare people off. But think about
tomorrow, Adrian.
but think about it in terms of marketing though, because it is a very, very powerful tool now.
Yeah, and it's quick and easy to do.
So you just have, if you have do you have to have a Google account, or do you just set up a business account?
If you've got a Google account, you can use that. If not, you can set up a new account. Yeah, either way, it's fine. You just want to make sure that you're promoting your site everywhere. Another really good way to promote your site and your new content is with a newsletter. So if you're doing new content regularly, you're adding 3 new news articles to your site every month, or 3 new information articles, or whatever they are. If you've got a mailing list and you can send it out to them, you can tell them about that new content, and again it gets you those people, gives you that retention. If you add if you're going to have a newsletter, you obviously want a sign up form on your site. Ask for nothing more than their email address. Again, lowers resistance. You don't need anything else. You don't need their name. You don't need anything else. You just need their email address. Because all you're going to do is send them a generic email that you're going to send to all your other people on your list. So, email address is enough. And a really good service to use for newsletters is MailChimp, and it is free for up to a mailing list of 2,000. And I think on the free one you can send 12,000 emails a month.
Yeah.
So if you had 2,000 people on your mailing list, you could send them up to 6 emails a month for free. And it's a really good system. It's really well trusted around the world. And even once you get over that 2,000 limit, the next sort of step up is $25.
Like 25, well, even $12. Depending, you can just go in and see.
You do a bit more than that than that.
Yeah.
But it's got lots of templates built in. It'll give you lots of feedback about your open rates and stuff like that. So it's, for free, it's a really good system. So it's really worth looking into. And actually with MailChimp, you can actually get forms that you can embed on your site. So a sign-up form that you can embed on your site really quickly and easily. It'll just give you a little snippet of code, and you just drop that on your site, and then it will have a mailing list form.
It also has the same form you can drop into Facebook, so it's actually on Facebook. So when they sign up to a Facebook page, it will put it straight into your MailChimp.
And it doesn't cost you anything.
And it doesn't cost you anything to start with. So, no matter what all the search engines want to tell you, and Google particularly is quite prominent at this, they bang on about links all the time, and they try and make out that inbound links are no longer really relevant to how you rank, which is a complete load of rubbish. Inbound links are still the most important #1 SEO ranking factor. You need to have as many good quality inbound links that you can get. And inbound links are really difficult to get from good sources, but you have to be really careful because you don't want to just be getting inbound links from anywhere. So you don't want to go and sign up for Bob's super directory service and get a link from there, because that will actually have the adverse effect and cause you to be penalised by Google. So you want to have really good inbound links. Demos.org is one of the oldest sites on the web, and it is a directory service. But it's a directory service that for, 10 years Google owned. prior to that, it was a sort of open thing, and then Google sold it to AOL, I think, who still own it. And a link from them is still really valuable because it is almost impossible to get listed in DMOZ. But like everything, if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's worth spending 10 minutes going to the DMOZ site, finding a relevant category. Say for a local business, you probably want to go into the sort of UK, Kent, Gravesend or whatever area, find a relevant category to your business and fill out the form. It'll literally take you a couple of minutes. If you don't ask, you're never going to get. In the 15 odd years that I've been doing web stuff, I've submitted many a site to DMOZ. I've managed to get 2 listings. It is a really valuable link if you can get it, because it holds a lot of weight with Google because they are so fussy and so picky and so difficult to get, and you will never get any feedback from them as to why they haven't listed you. You will literally get nothing. You will just see yourself appear there one day, and that's all. There's no feedback from them or anything.
Do you have any idea what sort of criteria they're looking at in order to give you that listing? None whatsoever.
No.
It's just
I've also applied to be an editor 4 times and never been accepted for that either.
Is there any value in resubmitting if you submit and don't get anything for 6 months? Or do they just get wound up by that?
They tell you not to.
Right.
But if it's been 6 years, then maybe, but 6 months maybe not, but maybe a year. Right. They do tell you not to resubmit, but yeah.
And once you're on there, is it?
It's permanent, yeah. The 2 listings that I've ever got have never disappeared. They've never gone away. So, yeah.
Was there anything about those 2 listings that would let you know why they were selected?
No, because actually one of them was for a site where there was 3 other sites for the same company in different locations, and they didn't accept any of the other 3, and they were basically the submissions were identical, just in different regions. So we probably had a different category editor, and one of the category editors said yes, and the other 3 said no.
So they are human editors, aren't they?
Yes.
There isn't any.
That's another reason why it's very. That's another reason why it's very well. You know, it's a valuable link, but you'll be lucky to get one. But I will mention it anyway because it literally takes minutes to do. Something that most people don't do is ask for links.
Yeah.
So anyone who you know that's in your sector who can help. So if you're a member of a chamber of commerce, or if you're a member of an association or a group, or or you run some sort of function like this, and you've got people who like you and think you're good and might link to you from an article or something, then ask. Lots of associations and chambers tend to have lists of members, and they'll tend to list the information they've got about that member. They might not have your web address. So make sure they have it and make sure they add it to their site. Because again, those sort of sites tend to hold weight with Google. So if they know that like National Association for Electricians or whatever it is, and you're a member of that, then make sure that they list you, because people like Google will know those sites are valuable sites, and therefore links from them are vetted and checked and not just random. So if you were featured in a newspaper article, and that article's on their website, ask them to link to you if you can, all that sort of stuff. Any time you can ask someone for a link in a relevant sort of way, then fine. You don't want random links from your mate's football website. It's of no value, and also it could be harmful because it will Google and stuff will see it as a different sector because they categorise sites into sectors and stuff. And
there is a technical point on this actually. In the summer, we've been working with Rugby School. And the Telegraph did an article on Rugby School where they actually put rugbyschool.co.uk and didn't put the www, and they hadn't got the site set up without the www, and therefore the link didn't work.
Yeah, make sure that the link's right. And again, if you find links that are not right and don't work, go and ask them to be changed. You know, again, it's only a matter of asking most of the time. And people go, "Oh, really? I haven't got that link right. Right, I'll get that corrected." You know, I've seen it before on even sites like the BBC. I've seen it on where they've put the wrong link in and stuff. So, social media. There we go. So if you're writing lots of new content all the time, as I'm sure you are, and pushing it out, you want to tell people about it. So obviously you've got your other ways of doing your promotion through your newsletter and stuff like that. But you should be pushing your content out via social media on a reasonably regular basis. Promote all new content straight away and re-promote existing content. Again, I do this for a site, and I tend to have a spreadsheet set up, and I just have all of the pages of content, and I just list the date that it was last tweeted or shared on Facebook or whatever, and I look for the older ones, and then just retweet it again, share it on Facebook again, and just update the date, and the new pages get added to the bottom of the list, and with the date it was last done, just so that you can make sure you're regularly just informing people that your content's still there and stuff. Links from social media have no value though, so just by tweeting or sharing your link on Facebook, it has no SEO value at all, really. There's some debate about that, but if it does have any value, it's extremely low, so you can't look towards this for you can't look towards social media for getting inbound links, but you can look towards it for sharing content and getting it out there. There's a really good online. Going the wrong way. There's a really good online service for social media sharing, which is Hootsuite. Again, the basic service is free. There's a paid for services as well, where you get more advanced features. It starts at about £7 a month, but the free service tends to cover most things that most people want to do. Good thing about Hootsuite is you can share the same piece of content to Facebook, Google+, Twitter, all at LinkedIn, all at the same time. So you can do one thing and just say, I want it to go to all these services, and you just one button click, and it goes to all of them. So you don't have to trawl around doing it 3 or 4 times. And the other really good, useful thing on Hootsuite is you can schedule them. So if you're re-promoting your existing content, you can just have those all scheduled up in a list and say, all right, I'm going to do that one tomorrow at midday, that one the next day at 3 in the afternoon, that one the next day, and then it just automatically does them. So you can just spend an hour adding them all to Hootsuite once a month or something.
You have to be really careful with that though, because Lindsay Lohan's PR company decided that they were going to schedule her tweets, and the morning that she fell out of a nightclub, absolutely off her face, they were saying that she was doing some keep fit, or she was doing a yoga or something or other, and apparently her PR company, the agency, got sacked off the back of it. So you have to be very careful. You can use Hootsuite, be careful when you schedule.
Don't go to nightclubs and fall out the door.
Yeah. Not sure that's massively relevant, but
Speak for yourself, you know.
So Google Analytics, most good web companies will install this for you by default. It's worth having, it's free, and it gives you some insight into your site, so you can register and install it. It will give you a little piece of code that you need to put into your page. If your web developer hasn't done it for you, you will probably need to ask them to do it. If you're using CMS like something like WordPress, there tend to be plugins where you can do this, so you might be able to do it for yourself. But once you have registered and installed it, you can monitor your stats. And what you want to do is you want to look at it regularly, depending on the amount of traffic you get, but maybe once a week. And but basically just look for any sudden drop off in traffic, because that tends to suggest there's some big issue with your site. If you're really paranoid, look at it every hour. But basically, the main thing you want to do is just make sure that your traffic looks pretty normal, pretty stable, hopefully growing, and just make sure that there's nothing there that suggests any problems.
And if you're paranoid, diarise changes that you make. So when you make some change, if you make a big change, actually make a note of it.
You can actually do that on Google, on Analytics itself. You can actually, on the sort of graph, you can click on a bit and add a note to it to say you made a change on that day or something. Because this, sort of monitoring your traffic levels, because like if you had some good listings in Google and you were getting a couple hundred people to your site a day, and then suddenly you get none or a few. Maybe you've been delisted from Google or something because you've done something wrong, you've got some dodgy links or whatever, or they think you've done something wrong, should I say. It will give you a warning that that's happened and that there's something to look at what that thing is it's a bit difficult to say, but if you look at things like referrers and stuff like that, you can see where your traffic's coming from and see where it's stopped coming from, then it will give you a good indication.
Also gives you a good indication if you've done something really positive.
Yeah.
And if you put something up on an article and you've got a Telegraph listing, you need to put all your effort into Telegraph listings because that drives your traffic. There's no point doing all that other stuff because it's not worth it compared to one link.
Yeah. So high bounce rate. So bounce rate is where someone comes to a page and then immediately leaves your site again. So they've done a search on Google, they found a page on your site, not your home page, say an internal page, and they look at the page and then immediately leave again. So that's what a bounce is. Bounce rate in analytics is measured as a percentage, so it's a percentage of the views of the page as a landing page. And what this suggests is that there's some reason why people are coming to one page and not staying and looking at other pages on your site. So it could be that just the way the page is configured, it doesn't encourage people to go any further into your site. It doesn't offer them more articles about the same topic, or it doesn't offer them a way to do something else. But this is a good report to look at in analytics. It's probably one of the most useful reports in analytics, is to look at the page bounce rate, find the pages that have that bounce rate, and then go and look at them and try and decide why. Look at them from a sort of different perspective and try and see why people aren't going anywhere from that page. Does it feel like a dead end? Does it feel like sort of, well, I'm here, there's nothing else to do, so yeah, of course if someone landed here they're just going to leave again straight away. And then you can make changes around that to try and encourage them to move further through your site and do more stuff. Another really good service is Google Webmaster Tools. I actually think they've changed the name of this, but I can't remember what they've changed it to. Anyway, if you search for Google Webmaster Tools, you'll still find it. The word Webmaster Tools makes it sound a bit scarier than it actually is. It's basically just a set of tools to help you view the site as Googlebot sees it. So you have to register and verify your site with this one. You don't have to install anything on your site. There's various different ways you can verify your site owner. You can upload a file to it, you can do a DNS change, there's various different ways you can do it. But again, if you're not sure, whoever deals with your website should be able to help you out with that. And one thing you can do with it is you can submit to them your XML sitemap. So your site should have, if it's been done properly again, your site should have a file in the root called sitemap.xml, and that should be a machine readable file that lists all the URLs of your site. So it lists basically all your pages on your site, and it's basically so you can tell Google's bot exactly where all of your content is, and it will then obviously notice changes in that and give you and index those pages quicker than it would by it trying to find them naturally itself by crawling the sites. There's various different things you can do with this file, but if you submit it to Webmaster Tools, it will also actually tell you how many pages are in the file, how many pages you're telling Google it has, and how many pages they have indexed. So you can say your site had 300 pages, but Google only indexed 50, tends to suggest there's some issue there as to why they haven't indexed the others, so it gives you a starting point to look into what's wrong. There's various other metrics in there around telling you that there's issues with your site, so it's worth regularly checking that. I tend to check on the sites I look after once a week, just to make sure there's nothing major. If there is something major though, Google will email you and tell you there's an issue. So whilst you don't need to necessarily log in and check for issues, it will email you if there's a major issue, but it won't email you if there's just sort of small little things. But it's worth keeping an eye on. It gives you some insight into how Google sees your site from its machine point of view, so rather than the human point of view. So it'll give you various stats around sort of keywords it sees that it thinks are relevant. Like it will list the top 200 keywords from your site in order of appearance, so how often something's appearing. And this is quite useful because sometimes you find that there's a word there near the top that you would go, well, that's not relevant to my site at all. Why is that appearing so much? Oh, it's because of this. Okay, we need to make a change because we've got that on every page, and actually that's causing us a problem. Something like There's lots of different metrics in there, but it gives good insight. It will also tell you where you're appearing on Google in the search results page for keywords and phrases. So it will give you the average position you appear for, and it will do it over time as well. So you can see that, okay, my site's appearing for these keywords and phrases. I'm appearing in position, average position is 8, and my click-through rate is almost 0 from that. But for this keyword, and my average position is 2, and my click-through rate is brilliant for that. So and if the ones you want are down in the lower echelons, you need to raise them up. You need to work on that content and bring it through. And it also allows you to actually ask. There's actually a tool in there to fetch a page from your site as Googlebot and show you what Googlebot sees. So again, you might do that.
What's Googlebot, Andrew, for everyone that doesn't know?
So Googlebot's its bot that goes out and crawls the web,
Robot.
essentially. Yeah, it goes out, it crawls the web, it finds pages, it indexes them and stuff. But it allows you to see it as it sees them. So you may be looking at the page going, well, that looks fine to me on my web browser, but when you do fetch as Googlebot, you may see that actually you can't see half the content or something because there's some technical issue that's blocking stuff out, but only for Googlebot, not for a normal browser and things like that. So again, it can be useful if you've got issues. It allows you to see all the links to your site that Google sees. So because Google doesn't index every single page it ever comes across, just because you've got a link, just because you've got a link from site X, doesn't mean Google does, because Google may not have indexed site X or that page on site X for any particular reason. This lets you see where all your inbound links are. And it also then lets you see any inbound links you weren't aware of and may not be too happy about and want to get removed or want to get taken down if necessary. It also lets you see your internal links, so how many times a particular page in your site is linked to from other pages in your site, which again can be useful sometimes. Not as much as it used to be, but it's still useful information. It has manual action reports as well, so this is like the worst of the worst. If you get a manual action report from Google, basically that means your site's been taken off of Google because they're not very happy with you, and they will tell you why they're not very happy with you in a very roundabout, unhelpful way. Most manual action reports tend to be for link spam, so they tend to be like you've got too many inbound links from sources we don't think are good quality sources, so like directory services, things like that. If you get one of these, you need to take immediate action to remedy whatever they're saying is wrong, but you won't get one of these if you're not registered for Webmaster Tools, so it's a really good reason to register so that you are made aware of any issue that Google suddenly thinks you have. I think we've had one customer with this issue before.
And sometimes if you've got lots and lots of dodgy links, it might be quicker to just scrap that site and start again.
Yeah.
Because it will take you so much time and effort to try and deal with those links. Just bin it and start again, because we've had customers that have tried to do that to get these links repaired. It takes a year, 2 years.
Yeah.
So for small business, it's just not worth it.
Yeah. And that's it for Webmaster Tools. So this one, keep the site up to date, and what I mean by that is not content. This is from a technical point of view. Web technology changes all the time and things move on all the time, and new browser versions are released constantly, it seems. And what you want to make sure you do is move with the times and don't get stuck, because lots of people, again, they do the set and forget thing. They keep the site for 5 years, and then they probably haven't looked at it themselves for a year, and they suddenly decide they're going to look at it one day, and today they're going to look at it on their brand new computer with this new browser, and it all doesn't work anymore, or there's big problems with it. So we do this for quite a few customers, and I think it's quite valuable, which is to regularly sort of do a website audit and have someone technical look through the site, make sure it's got the right sort of features on it now, it's moving with the times, it's using the right sort of technologies, it works well in different browsers, you know, and stuff like that. And just to do that sort of every 6 months or a year is a good practice, just to keep yourself from falling behind, and then suddenly going, well, we haven't done any sort of update to our site technically for 5 years, so now we've just got to get a whole new website, which is obviously a lot more expensive than if you just.
And if you treat it as your road car, you know, you don't drive your car for 5 years and it falls apart and you buy a new one.
No.
What you do is you drive your car and you take it in every 6 to 9 months and say, can you check it? Oh, you need some new tyres. Okay, I'll put new tyres on it. But you don't end up at the end of the 5 years with the car just in heat and unsafe, and that tends to be what people do with sites now. And I think there is an attitude change coming, isn't there?
Yeah.
That you've got to keep it up to date, because then you don't have to have a new site in 5 years' time and spend all of that thousands of pounds.
Yeah, and tying into that is to keep it optimised, because again, as technology moves on, things tend to get more optimised, generally technical wise. So, you know, better versions of some JavaScript plugins or better versions of some CSS and stuff come along, and you can sort of, you know, you need to move with that and keep the site optimised and keep it running smoothly for your users, loading as quickly as possible, things like that. And also feeding into that is when you're adding content, again, I think I said this earlier, but about images is, you know, make sure you are loading them the right size and are optimising them before you upload them. Don't upload a 10 meg image and things like that. And if you've got really, you know, long content, break it into multiple pages and things as well. Don't have, you know, a 20,000 word essay on a single page. And one thing that's really, what I think is a really good idea is to make small incremental changes all the time. So you just, I mean, we do this with our own site. We make changes to it maybe 4 or 5 times a month. Just small tweaks here and there. And if you do that all the time, you know, little layout changes, little tweaks to the buttons or something, you know, whatever it is, just to make it all a little bit better. You just do it all the time, no one ever really notices. So sites that are really famous for this are Google and Amazon. So I know they're huge companies, but Amazon make changes to their site all the time that no one really notices. And if you go and do a search on Google for, I can't remember what I searched on there, Amazon homepage over time, and you'll find some sites that actually will show you like how it's changed over time. And I looked at it and went, God, I've never even noticed it changing from like 2001 to now. And all those little tweaks they make all the time that you just never notice them happening. But it just keeps them moving on, it keeps them up to date, it keeps them flowing. And you don't need to suddenly go, I need a whole new website. I need to go and spend thousands of pounds to get a whole new website, because you've just done little tweaks all the time to your existing site. One little stat I found when I was looking at this was that there was a presentation at a conference that Amazon held in 2011 where they were talking technically about how the site works and how they deploy code. And according to them, they make a code change to their site every 11.6 seconds, which is slightly scary. I wouldn't want to be doing that. But that's it really. If you need any help with anything, then you can always call and email us. We're always happy to help people, give advice. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay.